and gentlemen, welcome into SEC Nightly, the nightly show dedicated to the top news and notes from the nation's top conference. It is the eve of National Signing Day. Some top targets are still left on the board and still left unsigned, right? Still got to put their name on that dotted line. Some big things still yet to happen tomorrow. But again, if you guys haven't noticed, SEC Nightly, we do this Monday through Friday, except for when, buddies get engaged or important things happen in the personal life. But we're going to have a fully jam-packed show for you guys tonight. We'll bounce around the SEC with some of my fellow SI.com team writers to get their final thoughts on some of the final spots and targets left, as we mentioned, in the 2020 class. Kirby Smart obviously did not waste any time getting the bullets firing and getting the fireworks rolling as Jackson Muschamp just committed to be a walk-on quarterback. Flipped him from Colorado State, the South Carolina product there at Hammond High School. Obviously, the son of Will Muschamp will be attending the University of Georgia as a preferred walk-on. We'll get Chantal Powell of the Gamecock Digest's opinions on that later in the show as well. But just to give you the overrun on today's show, we'll bring on Cole Thompson. That's who we're going to lead with tonight from All Aggies. He'll be talking about some of the top names in the conference, Zach Evans included. And then we'll bring on Zach Goodall down there from All Gators. He'll talk about, know your enemy, right? I know most of my following is Georgia fans, but we're going to be hitting on the Gators a little bit with the guy who's got boots on the ground there in Gainesville. Obviously, I'll give you the Bulldog beat at the end of the show tonight, and we'll get Chantal Powell on here to talk about Jordan Birch and where he'll end up landing. So, but first, as we mentioned, we will be joined by Cole Thompson of All Aggies over there to talk about two of the hottest names in the recruiting world at this point right now, Zach Evans and McKinley Jackson. Zach, let me bring you in, Cole, let me bring you in. Cole joins us via the SI.com StreamYard hotline. Cole, how we doing out there, my brother?
Listen, I know that you're excited to talk about Zach Evans, but I am Cole, and I know that we have another Zach coming on, but I'm doing pretty well. It's going to be a busy night up here in the greater Houston area. We have two big players who are going to be looked at. One, of course, being Zach Evans, who is in the greater Houston area. You put his name down. We don't really know what the plan is right now. He is going to be definitely one of the big targets. And McKinley Jackson, a guy who recently visited Texas A&M, now in the final processes of his recruiting trail. It could end tomorrow morning at 9:40 in favor of Texas A&M, maybe even with a top 5 finish in the recruiting game.
Yeah, so certainly, I guess we could start there with McKinley Jackson, if you don't mind. I know the show sheet said Zach Evans first, but let's hit on McKinley Jackson. This is a guy that Alabama kind of led for the majority of the late process here for this top commit, or not top commit, top recruit. And now A&M kind of making a late push. That's what I'm led to believe. Cole, how do you feel about the Aggies' chances of landing Jackson tomorrow?
I still think it's one of those things that it's going to be a Nick Saban type move. If Nick Saban wants the guy, he's going to get the guy. He can make a quick phone call late at night and then be able to say something to Jackson to where it says, listen, we want you. We need you to be a part of this program, and we need you to trust this process. But at the same time, you look at what A&M has done. Everything that I've been told by my people is that it was a very sound recruiting visit for him, and he was very pleased with the program. This is a top 100 player that is still available for the market. Number 61, I think he's the 4th ranked defensive tackle in the draft. And with the loss of Justin Madubuike, there's going to be a need to replace his production in a year or even this upcoming year on the defensive line for Mike Elko's defense. So a guy like Jackson could see significant playing time, kind of like DeMarvin Leal did. Maybe later on in the season, you pair him with Bobby Brown. I definitely think that there's everything to look at with this guy, and you could see him coming to A&M. But I do think it starts with Alabama. If Alabama wants him, it's one of those things where he may not want Alabama. But if the mutual position is right there, I could see it going this way. But he will be an early signee. He will actually be done at, I believe, 9:40 Central Time tomorrow. And he's, I think he's Eastern Time, so he's 10:40 Eastern Time. We will know where he's going. It looks like there's only 2 schools, and it will be A&M or it will be the Crimson Tide. So he will head to the SEC West.
Yeah, and Jackson's a guy who's absolutely dominated the late circuit right there in the senior cycle, all the All-American camps and all that, all the All-American games. He was unblockable at times, Cole. And I've said in an article the other day that I really think this is a young man that's like one really good strength and conditioning program from being absolutely dominant at the college level. He's got all the elite, abilities you need at 6'2", 327 pounds, elite short area quickness for a big guy that size. But again, Bama led for a long time. Now A&M obviously making a late push. Let's talk about, one guy who's been talked about plenty in this recruitment process, and that's Zach Evans. What is the latest you're hearing out of Aggie land out there, Cole, about the nation's, top back, or at least he was at one point?
Well, production-wise and, of course, just number-wise, I do think he is the nation's top back. I don't think we can just throw that away because he is a guy who set for over 4,000 rushing yards and 76 touchdowns in 3 seasons as the North Shore Mustangs lead running back. But according to a source I spoke to earlier today, he will not be making an announcement tomorrow, at least a public one. If it is, it will be via social media. It won't be one that's planned out by the conferences. A lot of school districts actually, set up these events, and according to my source, he will not be a part of the Galena Park ISD source tomorrow. So if there is an announcement, it's him coming out on his own and making this announcement. As you and I both know, he had 2 late visits to SEC programs with Tennessee Volunteers and the Ole Miss Rebels now, who have a head coach in Lane Kiffin. That could be the ending move for him, going to one of those later schools. You and I both know, just because he's been in the recruiting trail, he was originally expected to go to Georgia, and before that, it was either a mix between Texas A&M and LSU. A&M has made a late push in recent days, but now with the new signing of what they believe is going to be a player in Dervion Hubbard, a 3-star running back who was initially committed to Ohio State, now looking at either LSU or A&M, and my sources telling me it's looking more like he will land with the Aggies due to the lack of depth in the running back chart. If he does land with A&M, and McKinley Jackson does land with A&M would actually be out of the Zach Evans running because they would only have 25 spots available on the roster, and all 25 would be filled. So he may have to wait to even see if he can make the A&M roster as a full-time starter, or if he was to join the roster, if it was on a walk-on or go the junior college route and join in 2021.
Yeah, a litany of storylines to be paying attention to there with Zach Evans. But I think you hit on, something that we kind of expected, that he definitely wouldn't be signing anything tomorrow, and let alone would not be making an announcement. North Shore High School, obviously out there in Texas, one of the bigger programs in that state, and they'll be having plenty of guys signing a letter of intent at that program tomorrow. Zach Evans, according to Mr. Cole Thompson here on SEC Nightly, will not be one of those. I think at this point, Cole, it goes back to what we were talking about the other day here on SEC Nightly. At this point, we thoroughly believe that even if he does make an announcement, all it is a commitment that he will eventually show up there during the summer, because I think that's what's going to happen. With whatever his situation is, whether it be academics or whether it be, a conflict with the original LOI that he signed, he probably won't be able to enroll until the summertime anyways, to even be able to sign another letter of intent or another set of financial aid paperwork. So the breaking news, obviously, tonight, he will not be making an announcement tomorrow. Cole, before I let you go, do you have anything else we need to talk about out of Aggie land out there? And if not, go ahead and tell the people how they can find your great work.
Yeah, I just want to be able to say, if they are able to land it, including Evans, who could sign to say if Jackson or Kennard was not going to be able to go ahead and make a comment, I do believe that if they were able to land Evans, you will see A&M jump into the top 5. And if LSU was to jump in, you could see a total of 4 schools in the SEC represented in that top 5. That's a big number for a competitive conference, and 3 coming from the SEC West. With the addition now of KJ Costello in Mississippi State with Mike Leach, the SEC West just got even more dominant. Check out all my great work at allaggies.com, and check out me out at Mr. Cole Thompson.
That's allaggies.com, and check him out as the bottom ticker is reading at Mr. Cole Thompson on Twitter. Cole, again, man, 2 times in a row tonight calling you Zach. We got Zach coming on next, but we're going to pat you out, Cole. We appreciate you joining us. As always, you are more than welcome to join us at any time. As we mentioned, coming up next, we'll be joined by Zach Goodall from allgators.com to find out the latest news from Gatorland down there in Gainesville. But before we do that, we got to take a quick break to remind you to follow the show on Twitter, man, at SEC Nightly. Let's go find that fancy banner. Follow the show on Twitter at SEC Nightly. Let us know. Put us on alerts. That way, if there's any schedule changes, all you need to know is that we go live. That's pretty much the only thing I use the SEC Nightly Twitter account for. Unfortunately, I don't have a fancy, publicist or media guru that runs any of my social media. I do it all myself. So if you see a tweet from SEC Nightly, it's probably me, but I typically use it just for these broadcasts. So you guys can follow us on there at SEC Nightly. Again, occasionally there are schedule changes, so find them out all over there. Now, let me pass my boy Zach Goodall in. Zach joins us again via the SI.com StreamYard hotline. Zach, how are we doing tonight, my brother?
Doing good. Ready for a busy day tomorrow. Heading down to DeLand High School to cover a signing ceremony that I'm sure we're going to talk a good bit about right now.
Yeah, I mean, National Signing Day and National Signing Day Eve, particularly right now, is a wild, mess for people in our industry right now. I am learning because, what we do for those listening, for those watching, what we do is we prep these things, right? You have some type of inclination of what's going to happen. You have some type of sourced opinion or source reference about what's going to happen. You prep these things. So when they announce them, you just hit go. Makes the night before quite long for us. The day of is pretty much fun, right? You just get to unwrap the packages. Zach, let's talk about it right now. We'll open up with it. Avant Williams, the last, big fish out there for the Florida Gators to be chasing the number 2 safety in the country in the 2020 class. What is the latest on the Avant Williams front?
Well, he's the type of player that'll come in and make Florida's class, it's already a really good one, filling all the needs that they needed, really finding a lot of roster balance and turn it into a great class because they had a lot of safety issues over the past 2 years, really, especially this past year, trying to find guys that could stand out. They depended on a rotation because they didn't really have enough strengths coming from the position to suit guys back there full time. They believe that Avant Williams could come in and play, and he could play early. They've already got 2 safety signings in Mordecai McDaniel and Rashad Torrance, but adding a third in Williams who would come in and play day one, whether it's on special teams, whether it's on the defense, perhaps taking over a starting job at some point. He's a guy that they want to get into this class. They're feeling pretty good. They're battling with Miami, who he was originally committed to at one point. They've come back into the picture at this point. He did a visit with them just last weekend after visiting Florida on January 24th. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I'm going to be there. Make sure to follow along with me on Twitter. I'll be doing a lot of updates.
Yeah, it's a good little professional plug right there from my boy Zach. He's well-versed in this self-advertisement game. But no, back to Avant, man. You're talking about a really diverse athlete there in the back end. I think he's going to be able to play a facet of positions. Maybe not going to be able to walk down and play the corner position, but I think he can play both free and strong safety. And if you need him to be a slot corner, he could probably do that, and do it well. An off-the-ball corner in man-to-man situations. And that's something, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, versatility in that back end is something that you have to have if you're going to play defensive back at Florida, correct?
Really, it's all over the defense at this point. They're looking for versatile guys. You look at Jeremiah Moon. He's a buck rush end, so primary pass rusher. He's 6'6", 230, and at times this past year, you remember it, they put him at star against Georgia. Like, it just, there are times where that happens. They love the versatility of guys being able to move them all around the defensive line, linebacker core, secondary, and that's what they're going to want out of these blue chip talents like Avant Williams as well. They're going to put him back as maybe they'll start running some more cover 3. That's not something they've used a ton, but he's rangy enough that you can put him as that single high safety. You could drop him back with, double safeties. You can put him down in the box. You can have him set the edge as a star corner or go back and drop into coverage, maybe in the flats or going up the seams at the star corner. He's a chess piece player, and that's the type of guy that they're looking for to put all over this defense at this point.
All right. Do you feel pretty comfortable that Florida does end up landing him tomorrow there in DeLand?
I would lean Florida. The industry like I do. We know that nothing's official till pen is to the paper. Wow. But I would feel confident of anything that's going to happen tomorrow for Florida that Williams would be the one.
All right. So on to your next guy. You're going to have to help me out with this pronunciation. I'm going to give it a shot just because, I'm a pseudo, semi-pro here in this broadcasting injury. Princely Umanmielen.
I believe you got it right.
No freaking way. Umanmielen. All right. A defensive end out of Texas. A real late push here from Dan Mullen. Had the kid in on a visit January 24th. What is the latest news here, Zach, on Umanmielen?
This one's feeling like a real split between Florida and Baylor at this point from what I'm hearing. I'll give the very, very, very slight edge to Florida just because of the momentum that they've built in this class compared to what's going on at Baylor at this point with a coaching change and all that. But again, that's something yet to be seen. With Florida, they've already brought in a ton of defensive line talent in this class, namely Gervin Dexter, Jalen Lee, but as well as some other guys. And they've got guys that can play strong side defensive end, including Dexter. If they wanted to, they can mold him into what they want. But they don't have that guy that truly stands out as a strong side defensive end. And it's 6'4", 250 with tons of athleticism to play coming out of Manor, Texas. I do think that Princely is a candidate to play that. They've got to replace Jabari Zuniga. They've got a guy stepping up in Zach Carter, but otherwise they're unsure of what they've got there at this point. So they'd love to get a guy like Princely in this class as well.
All right, so 10 early enrollees already down there in Gainesville. 11 more already have signed their LOIs, so that's 21 if my math serves me correctly. What's left on the plate for Florida? Obviously, Avant Williams. We talked about Umar Milan. Who are some other names that might trickle in and sign their LOI tomorrow for the Gators?
I really think that these are going to be the two names that we follow the most tomorrow, but you know, they've been looking for running backs. I don't believe that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to flip from Georgia Tech. I don't believe that Ashad Clayton is going to end up flipping from Colorado, which is going to leave it as a bit of a disappointing class for Greg Knox at the running back position. Granted, they did get a transfer from Miami and Lorenzo Lingard, who, if he can get eligible quickly, that's great. If not, they've got some concerns at the running back room for 2020. So we'll have to monitor that situation. They really want to get a talent in there. It's just not looking likely at this point.
I mean, you kind of hit on it right there with the transfers. 6 of them, I believe, in this class alone for the University of Florida. What's going on with this transfer theme? Is it something to pay attention to moving forward, or is it just a singular case and maybe an outlier right here in the 2020 class for Dan Mullen?
I think Dan Mullen sees it as a weapon almost, in a sense that it's kind of like a free agency. With just adapting to the way that the transfer portal is going to change the game at this point. And granted, 2 of these guys are going to be preferred walk-ons in Noah Keeter and Zach Sessa. Sessa being a kicker, Keeter being a guy that's originally from Gainesville. He went to Buchholz High School, so that one made sense. But then you look at former 5-star talents in Justin Shorter from Penn State, Lingard from Miami, Brenton Cox from Georgia. He will end up being eligible in 2020 because he transferred earlier in the year in 2019. He sat out
after the spring game.
Yep. And then there's Jordan Pouncey as well, Texas receiver, the brother of 2020.
I was about to say,
yeah.
Is there a kin there to the Pouncey brothers?
Yeah.
I imagine.
Yeah, okay. He is the brother of Ethan Pouncey, 2020 corner, who signed on early signing day. They are cousins to Marquise and Mike Pouncey.
All righty there. So that is a Gator family for sure there with the Pounceys. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. Is there any other storylines we ought to be paying attention to out of Florida? Any more news on the coaching front? I know they added an analyst. Any chances on Charlie Strong ending up down there in Florida, Zach?
You know, there's been a lot of mixed reports, but I'm really confident in what I heard regarding Kerwin Bell eventually joining the staff as an analyst. There's still, no clear update on Charlie Strong. No update yet on the tight end position. I recently wrote a story profiling some guys that would make sense that have a history of either playing and or coaching under Dan Mullen. Make sure to check that out over at Sports Illustrated Gators channel, All Gators.
Hey, man, chill out. We're about to send your butt out of the broadcast and let you plug it. Now, go ahead, Zach.
I'm good at this.
I know you are. But here we are. Zach, appreciate you for joining us. Before we let you go, tell the people how they can find all your great work, my man.
So everything that I've plugged tonight, it's all really easy to find just by going and following me on Twitter. You can find me at Zach_Goodall. I've got all Gators stuff over there, all the video content and live updates from Avant Williams signing ceremony tomorrow at 12:30 at DeLand High School.
All right, Zach, appreciate you for joining us, my man.
Thanks, man.
All right, so we'll send Zach out, and we'll be joined by Chantal Powell from Gamecock Digest just here in a second. But before we do that, we got to take another quick break to remind you to head on over to SI.com and check out all the great work that me and my fellow team writers are doing. P.S. That's pro sites too, man. If you're a Falcons fan, if you're a Packers fan, whatever your get is or whatever your niche is, whatever your team is, head on over there to SI.com, find your team site, today and get all the information that you need. Let me bring in Chantal Powell here. Excuse me, getting a little ahead of myself. Drank a little bit too much coffee before tonight's broadcast. Let's bring in Chantal. Chantal joins us via the SI.com StreamYard feed. Chantal, how are we doing out there in South Carolina, my friend?
I am doing all right, waiting with bated breath with the rest of Gamecock Nation to see how tomorrow plays out.
I hear you. So a couple of big Hammond High School recruits that are, paired up, committed currently to South Carolina in Jordan Birch. And give me 1 second on that last name, Alex Huntley, the big defensive end there from Hammond High School. First off, let's talk about what those two look like in that classification of football there at Hammond High School in South Carolina. Those two defensive ends, Huntley a 4-star and Jordan Birch a top 10 player, consensus player in the nation. What did the highlight tapes look like of these two against that brand of competition up there?
Well, I didn't get to watch them live, so I didn't have the opportunity to see that, but I would imagine boys amongst men, because South Carolina private school has some talent, but at 6'5", the two of them, I would imagine they were towering over people a good bit, but they looked pretty good on film.
Yeah, for sure. The word around the industry, Chantal, is that it was really, really hard to evaluate both prospects because the film was so bad. The level of competition just wasn't quite up to par to, how incredible these two athletes are. And their teammate, Jackson Muschamp, just committed to walk on at the University of Georgia. So you got 3 Division I caliber athletes right there at 3 premier positions. But let's get back to Jordan Birch. Obviously, the news out of early National Signing Day that Jordan Birch, made his commitment announcement, but did not turn in his letter of intent. You told us on SEC Nightly the other night you felt confident about him remaining at South Carolina for this exact reason, that he and Alex Huntley were going to be making this announcement, making this signing together at Hammond High School tomorrow. Do you still feel confident that both are Gamecocks?
I do. He took the visit to LSU. That was one of the schools that was still on his list that, you always kind of just want to see and make sure that you're sure. So he went and did a visit. Earlier this week, he was seen at the South Carolina-Missouri basketball game and was sitting right next to Will Muschamp. Women's head coach Don Staley came, shook his hand, maybe made a little, last-minute plea and tried to get some stuff in there. But I think, honestly, it was one of those things we forget, they're kids. So they're going to try and, milk the experience for all it's worth, see all that they can, do all that they can, because, it only comes once. But, his quotes about wanting to be a priority rather than an option kind of stood out to me. Yeah. And at South Carolina, you're going to be a priority. So I think, he sticks with that decision.
100%. So what do you think about his teammate, Alex Huntley? Have you had a chance to, watch him, what he's capable of doing, and what's kind of the buzz surrounding, the lesser known teammate there from Hammond High School? And are they a package deal? I know he's a 4-star recruit, but would they have been in the game and in the running for Huntley even without Jordan Birch is always the question in these scenarios. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think Huntley is a fine enough football player of his own ranks, especially being there at Columbia. What are your thoughts of Huntley as an individual prospect?
Well, yeah, I think, he still would have been a good prospect to go after regardless of what Birch was doing. And then especially if Birch had gone to LSU, that might have been the focal point. And then as you see, they're a pretty close-knit group out there at Hammond. They seem to be, they all wanted to kind of do their signing and announcements at the same time. But you see Muschamp kind of made his own decision and did his own thing. So at the end of the day, they're still able to make their own choices and don't have to be, one unit and one, package deal. So I think it just was one of those things that it's just how it played out.
Yeah, Chantal, you hit on a good point right there. A lot of the people watching this that are Georgia fans will wonder, with your comment about those Hammond high school football players being really, really close, does Jackson Muschamp's commitment tonight, breaking news tonight, that he is going to Georgia, potentially sway a possible flip of Jordan Birch? I don't think the two are connected. I think Jackson Muschamp just wanted to be in Athens, quite frankly. The commit to Colorado State, going to walk on, there at the University of Georgia. So he wants to be in Athens. I don't know if that's the case with Jordan Birch and Jordan Birch's team that's surrounding him, especially, you know, the one closest to him in his mom. So my next question for you, Chantal, 7 commits from the state of South Carolina right now for the Gamecocks. But and there's 7 of the top 11 players there in the state. So Will Muschamp is absolutely crushing the in-state recruitment right now in the state of South Carolina. But he's got 5 commits from the state of Georgia. Tell us a little bit of how he's found success here in the Peach State, coming down here and picking off some of the, you know, finer talent from the state of Georgia.
Well, just, you know, going back and touching on his son's commitment, you know, he went to the University of Georgia, so it's like
Obviously.
a bit of a legacy thing there. So, you know, obviously ties to the state, and I think that's going to get much deeper, you know, when you have Mike Bobo coming in, and then the new tight ends coach is former Georgia players, so now they're even deeper and more firmly entrenched in the state of Georgia. So I think you see on the recruiting trail that could be interesting. You know, him and Kirby Smart might have a little battle going on within state here shortly.
Yeah, I think it's a hotbed right here in Atlanta, right? And Georgia's not going to take them all. Georgia's even been Kirby Smart's been on record about how they're kind of changing to more of a national model, which means some of the top in-state recruits, and it's something that Clemson's done a great job about too. Clemson comes into Atlanta and into Georgia and picks off premier talent. Anybody ever heard of Deshaun Watson? Anybody ever heard of Trevor Lawrence? Quarterbacks in particular from the state of Georgia that ended up becoming Tigers and playing really, really well at that school. So it's nothing new to those South Carolina football programs to come down here into the state of Georgia and start picking off elite talent. Chantal, we're a little bit pressed up against the clock here. Tell the folks how they can find all your great work over there at the Gamecock Digest.
Well, I will be live at the signing tomorrow at 1 p.m. at Hammond, so you can follow me at Chantal Powell. I'll have video reaction, you know, good or bad, you know, just letting you know what's going on there. And then Gamecock Digest is where you can find the write-ups from the day.
Any wavering at all, Jordan Birch to South Carolina, are we 100% confident it's happening tomorrow, Chantal?
I mean, nothing's ever 100%, but if I had to bet money, I wouldn't. But I would still say that I feel pretty good about, you know, what he said and his commitment so far.
All right, Chantal, thank you very much for joining us on tonight's broadcast. We'll see you next time.
All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I told you and I promised you that I would be giving you a little sneak peek and preview of Georgia's National Signing Day tomorrow. Look, I think here's the deal. I think they're firm in their commitments, the closing of the commitments that they've got to finish out with Broderick Jones and Cedric Valentine Granger. I think both of those are tied up. Obviously, lad McConkey, there from North Murray High School, he'll 100% sign that letter of intent to the University of Georgia tomorrow. So those 3 locked up pretty much, can guarantee it, put a stamp on it. They'll be in Athens come this summer. As far as where the rest of the spots get filled out, we saw the breaking news tonight of Jackson Muschamp, first reported by Rusty Manziel over there at 24/7 Sports. That guy's pretty daggum good at his job. Okay, broke the news that Muschamp would be flipping his commitment from the Colorado State to the University of Georgia. So that's 2 quarterbacks in the 2020 class. 2021's filled up there with Brock Vandegrift, and they've got a good shot at landing Gunnar Stockton in 2022. But as far as tomorrow goes, there is still some more flip alerts to be paying attention to. McKinley Jackson's not going to happen. There are some other names that I'm not privy to mention right now, not on the live stream. Soon we'll have that on a paywall, but just know there will likely be a flip tomorrow. Not necessarily a huge recruit, a top recruit, but it will likely happen tomorrow morning as well. Again, just to recap everything, Broderick Jones pretty much locked up there at the University of Georgia, in our opinion, over there on the SI's Bulldog Maven. Cedric Valentine Granger, feel great about that one. Even leaving the Florida visit from this past weekend, did not. I think that was more of him entertaining a coaching staff that had chased him pretty hard, and him serving, showing a little bit of respect and a little bit of courtesy going down there for in a free trip. Why not take him? We talked about that all the time on this show. Take as many trips as you want. But I think in terms of the Georgia class, this 2020 class, yes, they'll have a chance at the number 1 overall class in all of the recruiting services, SI All-American included. They've got a shot to run that one down as we speak. And, they're currently holding top serve in 24/7 and Rivals' rankings. So that's all great, fine, and dandy. But the one thing that will stick out to me in this 2020 class is Kirby Smart's pulling in 9 preferred walk-ons, 9 guys, 2 of which were 3 stars that were committed to Power 5 programs. And he has convinced those young men to buy in, commit to the G, and find a role there at that university and at that program. So I think that, to me, is what speaks most about, obviously you have to be a great recruiter to finish number 1 overall in the recruiting rankings. That's any dummy can figure that out, right? But it's the small, intricate details to me, going out and signing, bringing in those 9 preferred walk-on guys, 9 quality bodies that are going to help that roster grow. And, maybe potentially one day will make an impact on the roster. You never know who it's going to be, especially at the quarterback position. You never know who's going to get hurt and who's going to have to step in and play a pivotal role. That is SEC Nightly for tonight. We appreciate all of our guests for joining us on the SI.com StreamYard feed. We appreciate all of you guys for tuning in and watching SEC Nightly. We do this Monday through Friday, unless there is a major life event, to our only host right here. Follow me on Twitter at Brooks Austin SI if you are not already. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. However you found this, show us some support. Give us a thumbs up if you're on YouTube. Hit that share, hit that like button if you're on Facebook. Whatever the nonsense is, however you support the broadcast, wherever you found it, we appreciate you guys for doing that. And if you ever, come in and out of the broadcast, I know the numbers kind of go up and down as we do this, which indicates to me that the viewer goes in and out. If you ever want to hear the full show, don't worry, run on over to the podcast feed, however you find your podcast. We are there. The full audio of the show will be there. And if you want to watch the live stream, it's always up on Bulldogs Mavens, Facebook page, and it's always up on my YouTube page over there. So, there's the rundown. All my podcast audience listeners, we appreciate you guys' loyal support. We will see you next time on SEC Nightly. I've been Brooks Austin, your humble host. We'll see you next time.